Hi everyone. In today's video, we are going to talk about this very common indoor plant. This is the Ficus Elastica, or it's also called the rubber tree or rubber fig, rubber bush, or I think in the Indian homes it is more identified as the rubber plant. Okay, this is not to be confused by the actual rubber tree from which you get rubber. So that is different. That is actually a completely different plant. It is Hevea brasiliensis, but this one is a part of the ficus family or the fig family, the same family that we get the banyan tree from. Now, this particular plant is native to most of South Asia. Now, this is a very common plant, and it's grown as a wonderful indoor plant and an ornamental plant in most houses. There are multiple variants of Ficus elastica that you see and are available today. A lot of them are hybridized today and they are available in different varieties. This one that I have about 3 here. This one that I have is the burgundy variety. If you see, this is not really green. So you have a similar, the native variety which has more greener leaves, and it's called Robusta, the Robusta variety. That one I don't have with me. The one that I have is the Ficus burgundy variety, and then I have 2 more here. These 2 are the variegated versions. This one is called the variegata or variegata. So this is the Ficus variegata, and then this one goes with a few other names. It is called Ficus elastica tricolor, or sometimes it goes with also the name Ficus bellies, right? So multiple names there. I have very tiny plants here, but they can grow to huge sizes. In today's video, I want to focus more on the care and propagation of this plant, because this is something that I've heard that most of the people who have this rubber plant at home, it grows as a tall and a long plant, a lanky plant, as one long stem. And if you want to get a bushier plant, what are the different tips that you need to use to do that is what I'm going to cover here. For starters, I started off with 1 stem as well. Okay, so but now if you see, I have 1 here, 2, and then 3, and then I have 1 here as well as a bonus stem. If you look at this stem, this is the main plant. Okay, and you see here I have cut it. The reason why it looks white here is because I had put some cinnamon powder and rooting hormone on this. That's why it looks white, but it also has a white sap. So if you cut open a plant, especially the stem, you'll find that there is a white latex kind of sap, and that sap is a little irritable, so you need to be a little careful when you handle it. It's not as poisonous as probably the pencil cactus, etc., but it is still something that people can be allergic to. So please be careful when you handle the white sap. Now going to the propagation, this is the same one that I cut off from the main stem. Now if you look at this one, the Ficus elastica can be propagated in multiple ways. One is the stem propagation. The easiest way to do that is I can remove this leaf as well. I'll use the scissors to do that. Just use the leaf and you can see the sap coming out there. Right? So I can remove this leaf. So I have this a good stem here, and you can see this here. I have some rooting hormone. This is absolutely optional. Okay, you don't really need to use a rooting hormone for this. So what you can do is you can just take a little bit of rooting hormone and kind of dip the stem in that rooting hormone. Okay, you can just put it in the same pot or a different pot. Now I want this to spread out and bush out in all directions, so that's why I'm going to put it into the same pot. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put it inside. This one would have just become tall and lanky But now you have 4 bushier plants that will develop, and each of them will grow into new stems, and if you keep cutting and keep pruning it, it will keep becoming bushier and bushier. That's really the tip for keeping the Ficus elastica small but at the same time bushy. Okay, now I removed this particular leaf, right? This leaf again doesn't go to waste. What I can do, you can even propagate this from leaves. So if you see, I already have 2 of them propagating here. So I can just add this one into the same set. Okay, make sure only the petiole is in the water, not the entire leaf. Dip that in water, and in a couple of weeks you should find some good roots coming from here, and then you can put them back into the soil. The only thing to remember is in every 3 or 4 days, do change the water. Standing water can attract larvae, mosquito larvae, etc. So do change the water regularly. Okay, the same thing can be done if I want to cut it, if I want to propagate it here. I'll have to look at it below the node. Okay, you can cut it here below the node, and just this part you can put it in water. The stem with one leaf, you can put that into water and water propagate it, or you can just cut that piece and put it into the soil directly, and it will propagate as well. So multiple ways of propagating: in water, in soil, from leaf, from stems, etc. Of course, if you have a big plant and you have multiple stems, you can cut them and propagate them that through root propagation as well. Another interesting technique, and this is what most nurseries use, especially if you have a huge size plant, is they use this technique called air layering. Air layering is nothing but just taking a part of the stem. You know, I can take a part of the stem and you just peel off the outside the bark of this. I wouldn't really call it a bark because it doesn't look, but it has got this woody portion, right? Peel it off so that the inside green portion is visible. Okay, of course there will be some white sap. Let that sap kind of drain and go down. Wait for some time. All around it, you can just peel off the outside layer. And what you can do is you can take some soil. It could be simple vermicompost mixed with some clay, and just cover it with that soil. Okay, you have to cover that soil with another layer of plastic or something and just tightly layer it, and you can put probably a rubber band on the top or the bottom just to ensure that no water gets into that plastic layer. After a few weeks, you will find that this whole part which you've covered with soil would have developed new roots, and it can then be cut very easily and propagated as a different plant. So this is a technique that is used by most nurseries, air layering of Ficus elastica. The advantage of that is you still have this big bushy plant, and you are only going to cut it when required, and you're only going to remove it from the mother plant, so it still gets its nutrition etc. from the mother plant, and you're only going to separate it from the mother plant when the roots have properly formed. So that's a very nice technique, especially if you have a large plant. You can use that technique for propagation. Do look up air layering. There are multiple videos on YouTube itself, or you'll find a lot of information online on the air layering technique, and this is wonderful to be used for rubber plants. Now the care of rubber plants is simple, so I'm going to keep it very short. This is a plant that likes a little bit of bright indirect light. The very fact that it can be grown indoors means that it can tolerate very light requirements, right? But at the same time, this is not a plant that can grow in very low light. It will grow, but it will not really thrive at all. So this plant does require bright light but indirect light. If you have a north facing balcony like the way I have it, it doesn't do that well indoors. I prefer to grow it outside in the balcony. This one, unlike say a ZZ plant, which is more of a desert, a succulent kind of plant, this is more of a tropical plant. So it does like water as well, but at the same time it doesn't like to be soaking in water. So while you can water say your ZZ plant once a month or so, you probably need to water your rubber plant a little more often, right? I mean, sometimes if it's too dry, even once a week or so, this plant does like its moisture in the soil, but it doesn't like to be soaking wet. Okay, so a couple of inches of soil when it gets dry, do water it again, and the same technique, water it well when you're watering it, and then let it dry, and then water it again. But don't let the soil be completely dry. Okay, this plant does require a little bit more moisture than the say ZZ plant. So that's the light and water requirement. When it comes to soil, it is very forgiving. It can grow in different kinds of soil. It doesn't require succulent soil. Your regular garden soil mixed with some vermicompost, perlite, will be the ideal soil for it. But once the plant kind of grows, what you can also do is remove some of the top portions of your soil and replace it with vermicompost, so that you can add nutrition rather than repotting the entire pot, because it might be root bound and it can get very heavy. You can just remove the top, say 1/3 layer of the soil, right? The top soil, and then replace that with good soil like a vermicompost or any other fertilizer rich soil. And that's the way you can get this plant to thrive for you. That's one thing. And of course, the other option is to repot it into a bigger size pot. And it really grows and thrives very well directly on land. But in the pot, you can always control their size, and also how, by keeping them small and pruned all the time. That's how you will varieties and variegated versions now. It used to be a very popular plant at one point, and then it somehow lost its popularity, and now it's coming back as a very popular or the in plant currently. The most convenient thing is it is quite easy to get also in most nurseries, and it's quite economical to buy. So it's a wonderful plant for beginner gardeners or people who think that they can't garden, or they think they don't have a green thumb. This one is very, very easy as long as you don't overwater it, as long as you provide it a little bit of bright light, it should do extremely well for you. So that's the Ficus Elastica. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.